might be in the rain.
It depends on the velocity of the rain.
There might be enough for everyone's need, but not enough for everyone's greed. From the depth of vice, we are emerging as a nation where it's no longer acceptable for public officials to divert public resources for private use. In the past 4 years, the highest office in our land is no longer seen as a vehicle for grand corruption, but can now be seen as a symbol for uprightness. Faithfully implementing the Treasury Single Account (TSA) addressed the unrestrained liberties that breed and allows illicit flow of public resources into private hands. The introduction of a whistleblower policy, in addition to other enforcement measures, has seen the recovery of illicit assets which would now be used to work for Nigerians. Also, several high-profile convictions were recorded. But this must be sustained even more at the next level. We will continue to build systems to tackle corruption, using technology to eliminate corruption-prone contracts and transactions, making processes more transparent while enhancing the capacity of anti-corruption agencies to improve the quality and efficiency of investigation and prosecution. The mindset and attitude that turns towards elevating corruption and illicit wealth will be discouraged. More importantly, we will build a framework to teach and impact civic and communal values that promote good character, patriotism, empathy, hard work, and self-reflection in our national life. Our nation will be one where all of our citizens exhibit the compassion, knowledge, and behavior necessary for building a cohesive nation in our diversity. We believe that as an upright people who pull together, looking after each other's interest, we will all go higher to the next level of all our dreams. Let's come together, understand one another better, think about others, and all work hard. Let's all go higher to greatness. Welcome to the next level.
Drop your weapons. Friends, you are youths, and it is your responsibility to encourage development. Welcome development in your community. Let us embrace peace and love. What is life without peace? Can a man say it is well when he lacks the optimism of an abode to come? Rivers State, that has been besmirched with all manner of names, was not intended by God for this. Friends, enough. Stop the kidnapping. Stop the violence. Drop your weapons. Weapons. We shall tell the elders and the people of Rivers that the boys have complied. They have embraced peace. Let's go, everyone.
Welcome to Abuja, the place that unites Nigeria.
Dub, dub, da, dub, da, dub, da, dub, dub. Yes. Oh. Now my dirty they smell like this. Now to throw away am quick. This kind smell fit make man sick. That woman throw away dirty for ground. Me sef go do the same this time around.
Hold up.
See, to do this kind badness by the book, you make sure say person or they look. And then you drop am nicely. Bros, nothing will happen. Trust me.
See, if you throw away dirty for ground, another person sef throw away dirty. Everybody come begin to throw away dirty for ground. Everywhere go come dey smell. Gutter go block, road go block, and you will like to dey dab. Now you say no more dabbing for you be that too.
Challenged to live up to their critical role as mentors in their households and leaders in society.
The most important is to teach our men, young men, growing up, that they must honor women.
Nigeria Immigration Service says new biometric registration will enhance security in the country.
Any person who is not a citizen of Nigeria and has stayed for a period of 90 days must register biometrically.
European Union Election Observation Mission to Nigeria releases its final report on the 2019 general election.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss executive-legislature relationship, plus broadcast arrangements for AFCON 2019.
Under the presidential system of government, which Nigeria practices, members of the executive arm of government are different from those in the legislative arm of government.
Of course, Kiria, that's unlike what happens in the pure parliamentary system, where the party with a majority in parliament forms the executive branch, and almost invariably both arms of government are somewhat fused, and in most cases this guarantees the easy passage of bills and policies, even though there could be complications sometimes.
Yes, Kinsley, and since that is not the case in the presidential system of government practiced in Nigeria, a lot of horse trading goes into executive-legislative relations with a view to influencing the passage of annual budgets and other executive bills.
Certainly, Kirian, and during the 8th National Assembly, you recall that getting legislative approvals for nominations and appointees of the executive wasn't exactly a tea party. In fact, some appointees are still holding their positions in acting capacity on account of that. But let's not forget that it wasn't peculiar to the 8th Assembly. We saw that what happened when during the President Obasanjo era, the formation of the NDDC became a problem because the Senate rejected the nomination of the president for the chairmanship position. That was Chief Onyema Ugochukwu, more than once.
Yes, of course, Kinsley. Not to mention issues of budget delays and pending bills that were denied passage or assent owing to discordant tunes. The president himself alluded to the rather frosty relationship between the last National Assembly and the executive. And like most Nigerians, he anticipates a cordial relationship with the 9th National Assembly.
Now, the search for a healthy executive-legislature relationship is a continuous one. But is it achievable? And what factors are required to lubricate the executive-legislature relationship towards achieving good governance? Of course, we'll have a panel of guests. I will be deliberating on that particular issue later on in our conversation today.
Yes, Kinsley, and we do have a second topic which borders on the collaboration between the NTA, Africa's largest TV network, and Hotspot, Nigeria's biggest sports marketing firm, to beam all 52 matches of the forthcoming African Cup of Nations Championship, otherwise known as AFCON 2019. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria, the first edition for the week. My name is Kirian Umayo.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Kirian in also welcoming you to this edition of the program, being broadcast as always live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We are right here in Abuja, that's Nigeria's capital city. As always, in the course of the program, we bring you our complimentary segments, and these include newspaper review, business, and others. In the meantime, let's take the morning news, and here is our other colleague, Kehinde Olaleye. Hello, Kenny. Good morning.
Good morning, Kingsley and Karen, and here is the news. June 16th is a day set aside worldwide to honor and recognize the role of fatherhood. In Nigeria, Father's Day was celebrated, especially in most churches across the nation. At the Asuvile Chapel in Abuja, where eminent Nigerians joined Vice President Yemi Osinbajo to celebrate the day, fathers were reminded of the critical role and responsibilities to not only the household, but the entire society.
The responsibility of a father is incredible indeed. And I think one of the most important is to teach our men, young men, growing up, that they must honor women. They must honor women.
Not more about the celebration, it is about the constant reminder of our role and responsibilities as fathers. And my message out there is that we must live up to that responsibility because it's a trust that God has vested into our hands.
You must discipline your children with the rod of correction. Is allowed.
The First Lady of Nigeria, Aisha Muhammadu Buhari, has emphasized the need for women to continue to be role models in various fields of endeavor. This, she says, will inspire the younger generation to contribute meaningfully to national development. Mrs. Buhari stated this at a dinner in honor of members of Guards Brigade, female military and police officers who participated at the parade during the maiden edition of June 12 Democracy Day celebration.
It is with all sense of pride and happiness I watched your recent display of high sense of commitment, patriotism, professionalism, and dedication through your performance. On those landmark occasions, the accuracy, discipline, and focus with which you all carried at your assigned tasks is worthy of commendation.
And Nigeria is reassuring the West African sub-region that it will not abdicate its leadership role in the region for the continuous promotion of peace, democracy and development. Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Mustafa Suleiman, gave the assurance in a message to a reception for delegate to the recently concluded ECOWAS Administration and Finance Committee meeting in Abuja.
I would like to assure you of Nigerians' commitment in collaboration with ECOWAS Commission and its institution for the promotion of peace and political stability in the region.
We hope Nigeria will continue being the big brother in our sub-region, followed by Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire and all the others, but we owe a debt of gratitude to the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for standing there in the name of regional integration and in the name of peace and security.
The European Union Election Observation Mission to Nigeria has released its final report on the 2019 general election with 30 recommendations. Key among the recommendations is improvement in future electoral processes.
The Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, chaired by INEC, included all of the responsibility security agency. It was not sufficiently effective. It didn't involve stakeholders, nor did it provide necessary information. We recommend that in the future it works more transparently and inclusively by holding regular consultation with political parties and civil society.
There are aspects of the report that we think are vague and are not definitive enough. For instance, if they say the result collation process is not transparent enough, I expect them to be very clear as to what they expect to happen over and above or beyond what we have in the Electoral Act presently.
The Controller General of the Nigerian Immigration Service, Muhammadu Babandede, says the newly introduced electronically based immigration services will go a long way in boosting intelligence sharing among security operatives in the country. This was during the passing out of parade of 44th Superintendent Basic Course of the service in Kano.
This registration, any person who is not a citizen of Nigeria and has stayed for a period of 90 days must register biometrically in the state the person resides. And it will be compulsory for Nigerians to report the registration also if a non-Nigerian has not registered.
The collapsed assignment and amnesty initiative of Zamfara State government will be revived and pursued with greater vigor and commitment towards addressing the prevailing security challenges in the state. The newly posted Commissioner of Police, Zamfara State Command, made this known at a media briefing in Gusau.
In achieving peace, more of dialogue and less use of force is desirable. In 2016, dialogue was applied and it works. In 2017, the security agents were used. It also works to some extent.
President Muhammadu Buhari heartily congratulates First Republic Aviation Minister Chief Mbazulike Amechi on the occasion of his 90th birthday celebration. President Muhammadu Buhari joins friends, family and well-wishers to celebrate the elder statesman, foremost nationalist and respected community leader who has remained steadfast in preferring the way forward for Nigeria and building bridges that will help strengthen the foundations of the country. A statement from the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Femi Adesina, says the President joins all who celebrate the nonagenarian to reflect on the ideals and he shares with national founding figures like the great Zeke of Africa, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, who used their leadership position to serve the country with dedication, dignity, and discipline. The President believes Nigeria needs nationalists like Chief Amechi to constantly remind Nigerians of national history and inspire all to embrace the core values of unity, faith, and peace and progress. The President prays to God to preserve the celebrant with good health, happiness, and peace, and wish all those who celebrate him a joyous day. And that's all on the news this morning. The Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kieran and Kingsley after this break.
Welcome to South Africa, your own personal playground.
Allow us to spoil and pamper you.
And delight you with our favorite local flavors.
Allow us to show you the full VIP experience.
Allow us to indulge your shopping desires. And show you the places closest to our hearts.
Allow us to cater to your every need.
It takes a lot of people to make your holiday special. Fortunately, we have 54 million of them.
What we are really cultivating here is a better future for all Nigerian women, and it's not always easy. Panadol Extra relieves headache, backache, joint pain, toothache, and menstrual pain. The pain is worth it.
NTA Television College JOS announces admissions into 2-year diploma programs in film and television production, television engineering, and broadcast journalism. The sale of forms will commence on the 13th of May and run through 30th July 2019. Admission forms can be obtained from all marketing offices, NTA state capital stations, zonal centers, or at the office of the academic secretary, NTA Television College, Rayfield, JOS.
On payment of a non-refundable fee of 7,500 naira in bank draft in favor of NTA TV College. Applicants can also obtain the forms through the NTA TV College portal at www.ntatvc.edu.nj.
Applicants are required to possess 5 credits in GCE or SSCE in relevant areas of study in not more than 2 sittings, including English and mathematics. All properly completed forms attached with photocopies of credentials must be submitted on or before 30th July 2019. For further inquiries, please visit our website at ntatvc.com or call 0803-3144-383.
NTA TV College, training you to be the best you want to be.
Registrar, Announcer.
Enjoy the best of African football as NTA, Africa's largest television network and hotspots, Nigeria's foremost sports production and marketing company, bring you all 52 matches of the Africa Cup of Nations, Egypt 2019 live from June 21 to July 19, 2019. Yes, all 52 games will hit your screens in crystal clear digital quality. It's your guarantee of a memorable viewing experience and a wonderful cost-effective opportunity for corporate Nigeria to reach tens of millions of Nigerians. For sponsorship and commercial support, contact Abubakar on 0803-331-0175 and Felix on 0803-308-2375. Hot Sports, masters of the game. NTA, you can't beat the reach.
And you're sitting to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We now go business. Palm kernel farmers and processors are celebrating the recent ban on importation of palm oil into the country after many years of advocacy for a clampdown on smugglers of the product. Comfort Amodu has details on business news.
Rice, maize, cassava, tomatoes, cotton, and wood broadly encompasses the entire textile value chain, oil palm, poultry, fish, livestock, dairy, and cocoa.
CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele reeling out a list of ban items, and for the first time, edible palm oil makes the list. It is a move small farm holders and palm oil processors have for long been advocating. Since the pronouncement, Nigerians and producers of palm oil have not ceased to applaud the government for taking such drastic action towards expanding agricultural productivity in all parts of the country.
We see it as God's intervention because this has been running Nigeria down all along. Nigerians have much more than what they should depend on, but carelessness is creating more problems because this program now will give Nigeria another face if it is well implemented.
They've already put in place infrastructure. They started working towards land clearing, inputs. Everything is actually being structured. So, you know, for investors, this looks really good. This like enforces a lot of confidence. It shows that the government is ready to do the work. And then investors are also, you know, convinced that their money is going to come back fine.
They hope with the recent ban on importation of palm oil, incessant smuggling and importation of the vegetable into Nigeria will be checked.
Another part of that presidential directive also says that we should blacklist from the foreign exchange market and the banking industry all firms, their owners, and their top management caught smuggling or dumping any of the restricted 43 items into Nigeria.
According to the CBN, its intelligence department has commenced investigation of the accounts of suspected palm oil smugglers. In the meantime, the Debt Management Office of Nigeria has listed $2.5 billion dual tranche and $2.8 billion triple euro bonds at the FMDQ OTC Security Exchange. According to Director General Debt Management Office Patience Oniha, the Eurobond listing is targeted at achieving a 60% domestic and 40% foreign debt ratio to reduce the debt servicing costs for Nigeria. She affirmed DMO's determination to utilize debt to support the growth of the Nigerian capital market and economy. With Business News, I'm Comfort Amodu.
Thank you very much, Comfort Amodu, for the business package. Newspaper Review is next for us on the program.
Let's welcome Bayo Atoyebi, our newspaper reviewer. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kerry. Good morning. Good morning, Kingsley. Right, good morning, Nigeria.
Let's begin with you.
Yeah, we have three papers this morning to review. Let's start with the Nigerian pilot. Nigerian pilot below the nameplate. ICIR faults INEC on server, insists NAS appropriated over 2 billion naira for it. Is on page 6. Oshu Guba, Supreme Court hears a delegate's appeal today. It's on page 8. And now the lead story, $16 billion per project. Federal government probes OBJ, that's Obasanjo, with two riders set to invite major companies and suspects. And Elumelu may serve as PW1, that's the primary witness. All right, now below the photo story, of the Nigerian pilot, Atiku denies alleged plot to lead a protest over INEC server. There are other stories at the foot of the Nigerian pilot. Road crashes drop, says FRSC. It's on page 8. Consulates to protest killings of Nigerians in South Africa, says the envoy. It's on page 5. Now, NAS leadership, Buhari, not Oshomole, brain behind APC's success. CAN rejects a proposed law regulating open preaching in Kaduna State. And then Akeredolu blasts Benin Electricity Distribution Company for poll services. That can be found on page 11. Kinsley.
All right, we're taking a look now at the Daily Trust newspaper. Daily Trust, just below the nameplate, you have 3 headlines. Buhari orders new security measures in Northwest. That's on page 7. We won't issue certificates twice. And that's attributed to the West African Examinations Council, page 6. And Labour cautions federal government over plan to sell Nashkamsat. That's on page 3. Lead story, it's exclusive, apparently, to Daily Trust, says 548 emirates and chiefdoms guzzle billions annually. And you can see the illustration there on the front page of the 548 emirates and chiefdoms across 19 northern states and the Federal Capital Territory. There is a sidebar there that indicates the highest and the lowest with the number of monarchs. The highest, of course, is Kwara with 90, followed by Kogi, 88. And the least is Sokoto, which is 1. And just down there, Kano has 5, Adamawa has 8. And part of the illustration also indicates how much is guzzled, according to the paper, by the monarchs. Kano, 1 billion naira for Kano Emirate salary monthly, and 100 million naira from the 44 local governments. Niger, 374 million, cars for Niger emirs. Sokoto, 750 million naira guest house for Sultan, 500 million naira palace for Guzo emir, and Sultanate Council is receiving its 5% allocation local government monthly from the Federation account. Zamfara, 5% local government allocations to the Emirates. Katsina, same 5%. Jigawa, 5%. Bayo.
Well, let's start with the other lead story about federal government probe 16 billion power project. That actually is the appropriate. Surprisingly, the paper, I think is the pilot, Kirian, I think
yes,
is the pilot. The headline is misleading. It says FG probes OBJ, which is supposed to be in Obasanjo. And if you go to the body of the story says that this is not the probe of General Olusegun Obasanjo. Rather, the AFCC has been inquiring to set the record straight. They quote several figures that have been pointed out that some say the project cost $16 billion, others say 13.27 billion, others reported 10.3 billion, while another instance has 8.5 billion. So they want to investigate and set the record straight. The indications are also that Ndidi Elumelu, who has returned to the House of Representatives, having been elected, was one time chairman of the committee of the House of Representatives that investigated and found a lot of anomalies within the power project, and therefore he is likely to come in and serve as prosecution witness. The other story that has dominated the media is also the European Union Observer Team that says it observed shortcomings in the operational and transparency indices of the 2019 elections. They deployed observers across 36 states of the Federation. A spokesperson, Maria Arena, says that they observed security problems. Group of men with weapons obstructed citizens. Security agents did not protect citizens' right to vote. They also indicated there were 150 deaths. They made several observations, including that party candidates and voters could not independently cross-check election results. Women and minority participation was poor, and they also recommend that licenses for broadcasting lacks pluralism. However, the report made observation and did not make any conclusions about the election. The Director General of the Buhari Campaign Organization, Festus Keyamo, observed that the form EC8 that was used to paste election results at polling stations was publication of results, and it was all over the country. He indicated that other observers, local, regional, continental, and world, had made observations that elections reflect the wishes of Nigerian people. the EU report, according to him, did not make that critical observation. And the EU says that their job was to make observations and make comments and not make conclusions. So that is there now in the public domain, and it has become a subject of discourse within the political class.
Exactly, and my thoughts, towards the EU observation is the fact that we also have domestic observers during that election, and they all, wrote in their reports with respect to what transpired during the election. Of course, in an election of that nature, many stakeholders were involved, not just the INEC, we have the politicians, also involved, while even the followership too were involved, because in the actual organization of an election, when it comes to the D-Day, many individuals are functional. The electorate, party agents, and of course the party's plan, because each party has a plan during elections, and plan also towards executing such plan during election day. So that is why the EU report is quite comprehensive, because they touched on all aspects of the election.
You see, an observer report is basically a social kind of research. You are having 120,000 polling booths, and you have an observer team of 110 men going around the country. What percentage of the polling booths were they able to visit? What percentage of... so what is the representation of the observer team across the country as to make their observation extrapolate to cover the whole of the nation? This is always the challenge with that kind of mission. And therefore, you always find disputes about such reports.
Yeah, but election observation has its own methods.
Yes.
It has its own template. There's no social research or indeed any kind of research that is elaborate that covers a wide area that will take into account, every inch of space that is required. So there are ways that, of course, they spread themselves out and then bring in those reports.
Representation of the population.
Yes, bring in these reports and then process them. There are issues. We have to learn from the recommendations. I think that's one of the key things. So that in the next general elections, next cycle is another 4 years, we don't repeat the same mistakes. The headline, of course, is that there seem to have been more challenges with the 2019 election than we saw, for instance, with the 2015 election. And it ought to be that we'll be making incremental progress in our electoral process. Although some of the issues that arose in the past have been taken care of now, but it's important that we continue to perfect the electoral process.
But from what is on ground, Kingsley, if you go by the elections we started in 1999, 2003, 2007, and all of that, some of the things that are called in those elections, reappeared, in 2015, and part of them too did this time around. So these are learning process. One wonders when it is going to end, so that we can begin to perfect some of these.
Learning never ends until the end. To the end. I just wonder, there are some stories that we have inside the pages. Just before we get into the foreign scene, there is a story, a crime scene. It's in other papers, which we don't have today. I saw them online earlier. This is coming from Daily Trust. It said, why I swallowed my victim's wedding ring. This is according to a 19-year-old armed robbery suspect who was arrested at Oshodi in Lagos. The victim, the robbery suspect, told a team of interrogators that he swallowed the 18-karat gold ring to avoid arrest. This was in Oshodi. Some boys who were picked up, and they are normally around Oshodi. Okay, that's on top of the bridge and elsewhere there. So luck ran out of him yesterday. He swallowed the ring. Of course, he will have an opportunity of reproducing the ring. Once he moves his ball. Yes.
There's also a swallow in Kano. A gorilla is said to have swallowed 6.8 million naira.
That's right.
And the Kano State government, in fact, Governor Abdullahi Ganduye has ordered a probe into that. This was over the Eid al-Fitr period. People visited the Kano Zoo, Zoological Gardens, and they made as much as 6.8 million over the period of Eid al-Fitr. Somehow they kept it within the zoo, and the gorilla in the zoo is said to have swallowed it. So the Kano State Anti-Corruption Commission is to look into the immediate and remote circumstances that led to the gorilla swallowing it and everything surrounding that incident. this was gate takings from the
Snake was the one that jumped.
Snake was the one for jump. This time now is gorilla. The question to ask is, was the gorilla not ensconced in his cage?
Yeah, that's right.
How did it get access to
the money in question? I mean, it's all the drama.
The gorilla has to first chew before it swallows.
Before it swallows.
So they didn't see the gorilla. I mean, gorilla, the notes, maybe unless they were liquid form. But if the money was in banknotes, then the gorilla has first to chew.
And
this is polymer.
Have swallowed.
And the gorilla will not eat a polymer. Gorilla under normal circumstances will not go for that.
A gorilla doesn't just swallow. Gorilla must chew. When you look at a gorilla in the wild, I mean, it's vegetarian. All right? And it plucks his leaves or fruits and then chews and then swallows. So in this case, maybe they did. Well, there is a story from the foreign scene. Well, at least two stories from the foreign scene. And this is page 52 of Daily Trust newspaper. This is very interesting. And it's coming from South Africa. It's right there at the foot of, nearly at the bottom of page 52. It says, teens, that is teenagers, attempt Cape to Cairo journey in homemade plane. And permit me to read some paragraphs of that story. It says, an aircraft built by South African teenagers is being flown from Cape Town to Cairo and has successfully made its first stop in Namibia. It will take 6 weeks to cover the 12,000-kilometer journey to Egypt. The four-seater plane was assembled by a group of 20 students from vastly different backgrounds. The teenagers built the aircraft in 3 weeks from a kit manufactured in South Africa by the airplane factory.
Yeah, good development, for Africa. And I can bet you, from a little experience in Nigeria here, we have young persons, that can do this. They are already doing that at their own level. But one difference with ours is the fact that they are at artisanal level, right? But they could function. You could see the
initiative.
Exactly, initiative. And of course, the drive on the part of the younger generation of Nigerians, who can do exactly what these students did. But the point is, how much of push is the government giving, such, innovations or creations, at the level of, studentship, right?
Can I draw attention to this human interest story? 10 patients injected with a drug the same day have all gone blind. They were attending a tertiary hospital and they were given a drug injection, the 10 of them the same day, and they reported that they have gone blind. The hospital authority has recalled all the patients, put them on free treatment and feeding, and they say they are determined to find an end to what has led to it. The National Agency for Drug and Food Administration has already taken the drugs for test, and the hospital management says they have previously administered that same drug over several patients and have never had that kind of result. So that has become a challenge. The other one are conflicting reports from newspapers about the possibility of the Supreme Court likely delivering a verdict on the Osun State elections today. Leadership says that unofficial sources say it is today, but official sources tell them that it is not the tradition of the Supreme Court to deliver verdicts on Mondays. It is usually Wednesdays and Fridays. However, because of exigency of timeline, particularly relating to the case on timeline, they may be compelled to deliver it today. Daily Trust has a different approach. Daily Trust is saying that the verdict will be given tomorrow. The Punch, in fact, is reporting that what is going to transpire today is hearing. So there is a lot of vacuum here about what is happening. But pointedly, something is likely to happen about the Osun State Tribunal.
We'll find out at the end of the day.
When a court is ready to deliver its judgment, the date and time will be announced, and it's usually announced. It's not open to speculation. Because that's the final process that you undertake in the course of handling a matter. All right?
Even when the court reserves judgment, they will give indication of the date for pronouncement of judgment.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
So I don't know.
Our colleagues need to get their acts correct.
Let's take it. The editorial is coming from Daily Independent. It says the 9th National Assembly and Project Nigeria.
Well, What the editorial is saying that we now have a new National Assembly, and they said like 2015, the All Progressive Congress has majority of its members. But they say unlike the 8th National Assembly that they describe as it struggled to make impact because it was torn between loyalty to the party and satisfying what the paper described as opposition. They say this time around, the Assembly has no excuse not to perform. And therefore, the paper is drawing attention to the need for cooperation for them to finish all unfinished projects. And one of that the paper harps on is pending bills, particularly petroleum industry bill. They also are asking for unity for the purpose of eliminating suspicion that is surrounding insurgency and banditry that is being interpreted in some quarters as expansionist agenda. They said support should be given to the executive so that collectively they can stem this strife that is gradually dividing the country. They said they should support the executive to carry out the project. And also, the National Assembly must address the issues of concern from the members of the public about what has been termed constituency project.
Right, Bayo, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
We'll see you again tomorrow. Okay, it's Good Morning Nigeria, still on the network service of the NTA. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll go ahead with our conversation segment.
They are there at the crack of dawn. They are there busy preparing while we rise for our day. They are there silently, guarding, waiting, listening, and watching. They are there ready in the sky above and the waters below, in the blistering heat of the day, in the dead of night, willing, indefatigable, determined in the defense of the sovereignty of our country. They are our first line of defense and our last. They who have paid the ultimate price in defending us. They are fathers and uncles. They are mothers and sisters and girlfriends and boyfriends. They are brothers and cousins and best friends and neighbors. They are classmates, colleagues, and citizens of this nation. They are our defenders and deserve our respect, our prayers, our thoughts. Nigeria, please support our armed forces.
What's up?
His friends didn't come.
Hey, let's practice.
But you're going out.
Don't worry about me.
Nothing satisfies a mother more than seeing a child grow up. But I know as he sweats, he'll face the risk of germs which can cause skin irritation.
That's why you need the new Dental Cool. Its new advanced formulation with extra menthol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs and gives your family icy cool freshness.
Growing up needs dental protection.
Sensitivity is a short, sharp pain that people experience when they have something hot or cold getting to the nerve of the tooth. If the sensitivity is left alone, it may get worse. Dentists recommend Sensodyne. It's able to calm the nerve of the tooth. The proof's in the results. It works.
One football confederation, 24 teams, 6 stadiums, 4 cities, 504 African stars, 1 trophy. The Africa Cup of Nations, Egypt 2019, comes alive from June 21 with the showpiece final on July 19, 2019. Watch the 52 matches of the tournament live on Africa's biggest and largest television network, NTA, in partnership with Hot Sports. Be part of the biggest soccer fiesta in the African continent as the Super Eagles go on a bold mission to clinch the prestigious title for the 4th time to the excitement of millions of fans across the length and breadth of Nigeria. Nigeria's premier sports production and marketing group, Hot Sports, partners with the biggest, the largest, and the #1 television network in Africa, the NTA, to give Nigerians a memorable viewing experience. Boost fan support for the Super Eagles to glory in Egypt. For inquiries, please contact Abubakar on 0803-331-0175 and Felix on 0803-308-2375. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
We thank you for staying with us on the show today. Now, to set the tone for our discussion this morning on executive-legislature relationship, let's take this background report as put together by Serafina Ukon.
The decay of infrastructure in public healthcare institutions.
Legislative power is no doubt the distinctive mark of any democratic country.
In every democracy, cordial relationship between the executive and the legislature is crucial in order to achieve good governance. Political analysts note that the executive-legislative relationship in Nigeria in the last 20 years of the Fourth Republic has been rather combative than collaborative, sometimes even heating up the polity. This has taken a toll on good governance in terms of delays in passage of bills and budgets that will impact positively on the masses. In the last dispensation, the Buhari administration flexed muscles with the legislature, which sometimes slowed down governance and delayed budgets, and the administration is hoping not to travel that road this time around. Conflict is inevitable, and in a lot of cases, it serves to entrench democratic values because lessons are often learned from disputes. But it is important that disagreements are not blown out of proportion with the masses at the receiving end. Now the search for a harmonious relationship between the executive and the legislature is a continuous one, and expectations are already high. Will the expectations be met in this next level dispensation? Guests will be deliberating on and more shortly on Good Morning Nigeria.
All right, joining us in the studio now to deliberate on the topic is Senator Ita Ena, Senior Special Assistant to the President on National Assembly Matters. Distinguished Senator, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Thank you very much.
Also joining us from our Kaduna Network Center, I would like to welcome Dr. Abubakar Yunusa Ahmad. It's a member representing Yamatu, Deba Federal Constituency in Gombe State. Dr. Ahmad, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Thank you and good morning, viewers.
All right, gentlemen, it's a pleasure to have you this morning on the show. Let's start the conversation by backtracking to the incipient of the Fourth Republic in 1999. Now, let's try and, of course, take a panoramic view of executive-legislature relationship 20 years ago. Let's begin with Ita.
I think it started well in 1999, and in the course of it, there was the struggle for the legislature to be independent, and the executive started by stifling the legislature. And in the course of it, what happened first was that the executive succeeded, as it were, and it should be, in ensuring that the leadership that emerged was balanced and came from agreement between the executive and the legislature. But shortly after that, the Buhari-led speakership got down, and Galium and Abba took over, and Dr. Chuba Okadibo took over. And these are persons that emerged exclusively on the floor from amongst the members. And then there was this action by the executive then to stifle and starve them of funds, and that was the beginning of the struggle for legislative autonomy, and it led finally to the other constitutional amendment or constitutional strengthening, where there was the first line charge, and the legislature became strengthened. Then in the second assembly, 2003 to 2007, there were the legislature got stronger under the speakership of Masari, now governor of Katsina State, and that was the time that the question of attempted third term arose, and the legislature asserted what it wanted, that the constitution should not be contravened at that time, and that it couldn't amend the constitution so early, and for that purpose. Then the Yar'Adua administration, it started smoothly, got one of the things that united the legislature under the Yar'Adua was the amnesty and the question of bringing peace to the Niger Delta. Then got the Jonathan administration. It got smoothly. Then under the President Buhari administration, the executive and the legislature worked closely, and indeed closely, but from different angles.
All right, Senator Itai, thank you very much. Let's go back to Honorable Ahmad, who we introduced a while ago. Honorable Ahmad, some observers would point out that since 1999, what has emerged from the National Assembly in terms of executive-legislature relationship is such that political party affiliation is almost irrelevant, in the sense that the party with the majority in the legislature, that's to say the National Assembly now, Senate and House, often would maintain an antagonistic position to the executive. What's your reading of what played out in the past 20 years?
Well, I think it's an issue of putting it in a perspective based on individual approach. For instance, the authors of our Constitution, who really architect this executive, legislative, and the judiciary aspect of our governance, especially here that we are practicing the presidential system of government, took into cognizance that each of them are independent of each other, but in terms of nation building, they are to correlate, and every one of them, that is the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary, has a specific role to play. And the Constitution guarantees this separation of powers. So for someone to say the legislative of government is really seen to be antagonistic to the executive, I think this is very too economical with the truth. The issue is that the legislative arm of government is to really provide laws and to ensure that those laws are being obeyed as far as the executive arm of government is concerned. They make the laws and then they go to do what is called oversighting. And normally, the executive arm of government is there. They think and perceive what they are doing is correct because probably they lack the norms. They lack the understanding of the legislative arm of operation. Then when the legislative arm come and say, okay, look, you are supposed to do this thing in a certain way, instead of them to cue in, to cooperate, they now assert a kind of a look, I know and I know all. For instance, let me tell you, a lot of the executive do what we call via-men. And when in oversighting, a legislator says, look, you are not supposed to move on from so-so area to so-so area based on the approved budget of the current year. Then the executive feel, look, he has the executive power. So the issue here is that in as much as a cordial relationship is needed and it is germane, it has to be done that everybody knows its limitation and then it's right. Probably where your right ends, then the right of another person begins. So when we look at it as really an avenue to provide check and balances, that is as far as the legislative arm of government is concerned, viewed by the executive as a providers of check and balances, and I think an enabling environment of working together can ensure. So that is the whole essence of that separation of power under the presidential system of government. Though under this presidential system of government is very, very different from a parliamentary system of government. Here, the president has an executive power, leading the executive with his ministers. They have enormous powers. So if not checked, there could be abuses. And that is why the legislative arm of government is put in place.
All right, well explained. The Constitution is very clear here on the issue of separation of powers and what should be a relationship between the executive and the legislature in terms of nation building. I hope I got that correctly from you. But back here in the studio in Abuja, we've just been joined by Awa Musa Rafsanjani. He is the Executive Director of Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you, and good morning.
Yes, but we'll just give you the first question. We have been doing a review of what transpired since 1999 in terms of executive-legislature relationship in this country. So it's not an X-ray that we're trying to do. So what's your observation within this period?
Thank you very much. Looking at 1999 to date, the relationship with the legislature and executive, in my opinion, it has not been that bad, because without the cooperation of the legislature, even the executive cannot make claim of some of the successes that they have recorded, because the legislature, they have to make the law. They have to also ensure that they provide, through the appropriation, the resources that is meant to execute all the government programs and, plans, and also to ensure that there is also, oversight through investigative hearing, through, even physical hearing, through public hearing, and what have you. So I think, there has been so much exaggeration over this lack of coordination or collaboration between the executive and the legislature. If the legislature has to do its work based on our constitution and based on the global world practice of parliamentary democracy, there's no way you should expect that everything the executive brings, it has to be accepted. In fact, as a matter of fact, even within the Federal Executive Council, if we are not running a dictatorial, Federal Executive Council, there should be debate, there should be agreement and disagreement, And during the military regime itself, the Federal Military Council, at that time, they debate, they discuss issues. So I think it is normal to discuss, to agree and disagree, as long as there's a national interest, as long as what, you are discussing is meant to help provide, and improve good governance, and ensure that ensure that there's a check and balances, ensure that the excesses of some of the overzealousness government agencies, not necessarily the president or even the governor, but there are some other government agencies that if you don't play that oversight responsibility, definitely you will have seen a lot of things that are not really in tandem with what even the government itself want to do. So in my opinion, having healthy debate and disagreement on some of these issues, it helps strengthen our democracy. It helps, strengthen our accountability mechanism. It helps ensure that, everyone knows that he or she has a boundary. So when you look at it, in totality, the executive and the legislature, all the time the president sends, even when people think that there was no relationship between the immediate past Senate, the president always sends request to the National Assembly through the, to the Senate and the House of Representatives, to the Speaker and the, Senate President, and those things are attended to. Where you have some, disagreement, it is only natural that you come together to look at it based on national interest to see whether what the government wants to do, because it's not always that the executive is right, and it is not always that it is necessary whatever the executive wants to do. It is also in line with what the people want or what the representative of the people want. So that's why you have dialogue. That's why you have understanding, because democracy itself is about the negotiation, it's about dialogue, it's about consultation, it's about understanding, it's about ensuring effectiveness in governance. So it is not about bullying any arm of government. It is about ensuring that every arm of government does what is right according to the law, setting up that institution. So I think the relationship between 1999 and to date, of course, at the beginning it was like more of learning process, because the executive at that time also thinks that legislature is just an appendage of the executive arm of government, and that is why, if you remember, in those periods, what the previous assembly was doing, 1999 up to 2007, was to ascertain the autonomy and independence of the legislature, meaning that the legislature should be allowed to also operate, not to be like a parastatal of the executive. And that is why you remember, during Galina Abba, he was always talking about, autonomy of the legislature. And by 2007, during Yaradua, the legislature began to gain some mile, in terms of getting some financial autonomy. Because before then, 1999 up to 2003, the legislature hardly gets what is required even to do it works. He can tell you, he was in the House of Rep at that time. Exactly. So to even get paper, it was a problem for them to get even stationaries to work because the executive has not approved. Because the executive also uses those kind of things as an incentives to either get what the legislature, to get what they want from the legislature ought to reward them, for that. So, but by the time we came to during Yaradua time, there was a kind of legislature coming to have its own pit, and begin to get financial autonomy, begin to do things, So I think we need to appreciate the transition, that we have had from 1999 to date. Yes, at a point, the executive, maybe because of lack of understanding or familiarization of the parliamentary democracy, or presidential democracy that we operate, they think that the legislature just have to submit to them. Whatever they want to do, the legislature has to approve, of it. But, in the last two assemblies, 6, 7, and 8, you would have seen that the legislature had begun to realize that they actually have power and they have responsibility. And that is why the only way to also checkmate the excesses of the legislature is through also public participation, so that when you go to your constituency, because constituency accountability or constituency outreach is meant to really give account, for the legislators to give account to their constituent. It's not what people think that it is just to go and have an office or to be attending ceremonials. No, it is a serious issue that there are certain issues, maybe early warning, is coming through the effective offices that you have. The member will be alerted and the member can come to the floor to say, look, we have an issue, and they will be able to address that. Or even some of the debate and the discussion, because they are representing people and people who really have to make input, they should be able to make, an input in the major national conversation that you will go and represent them. For example, during the third term, majority of the constituents, they said they didn't want third term, and they got the input from the constituent, from the people, and then they come to the National Assembly to say, look, my constituency say this, which means that there's a legitimacy, an input from the constituent. That is what is called constituency accountability.
All right, Rafsanjani, thank you very much. It's clear, this is something that has emerged from the series of conversations that we have had evaluating 20 years of Nigeria's democracy, that you can almost classify the legislative experience into two broad areas. One, the struggle for legislative independence from the executive, which they got by way of financial autonomy. But there is also the other aspect, and I want to bring in Senator Itayana, because you had the experience in the House of Reps and also in the Senate, that during these two broad eras, if you like, these two broad epochs in the 20 years of our democracy, we have seen a situation where the party with the majority in the legislature is almost invariably antagonistic to the executive branch. And this is not just a question of, the assertion of the independence of the legislature, but what went on. I recall we had you here in 2015 after the elections. You were in the Senate at that time, and you gave out, some hints as to better management of legislature-executive relationship. So, can you describe for us what went wrong in the past, or what went on in the past, and how we have tried to manage that 4 years hence?
That is the immediate past 4 years.
That's right.
Well, I think one of the main areas was area of divergence where political interest of the actors, of the major actors. And again, the party supremacy, yes, it played out, but don't forget that the party, as it were, had candidates that it wanted to be the presiding officers and in the House and the Senate. It didn't come to pass. Now, again, don't forget that in the course of the relationship, the president of the Senate defected and the speaker defected to the other political party. In the course of it also, the president of the Senate wanted to be contested nomination of the other party to take over as president of the country. Therefore, in such situations, you do not expect a very smooth operations from the part of the persons who have this interest. Now, I think credit will go to the President Buhari administration, because in spite of all this, his administration and the administration was still able to maintain a cruising relationship between them in terms of getting the things that were sent out, given the way it ought to come from the actions of the executive. There were also situations where most of the measures sent sometimes are not presented on the floor. You remember there were situations where nominations for appointments were sent, it was not even read. And if it is not read, it is not introduced on the floor. And if it is, you remember again that there were situations where if those things are not read, there were options that were sometimes taken by just announcing that those things have been sent to the National Assembly, bringing pressure. What am I saying? That political party differences, and political interest of the actors sometimes defines whether the relationship is going to be hot or cold. Now, sometimes again, it's not the political party differences. It's sometimes the mien of some ministers. It is not correct that the relationship is always defined by the relationship between the president and the presiding officers. Some ministers, with respect to them, sometimes do things that are not in tandem with norms. And the relationships some ministers have with the committee chairmen, with the committees, and things they do, some of them, with respect again, think that when they come into power, into office as ministers, it is what they do that becomes the law. They do not act as if there were laws that they are supposed to do, comply with those laws. And that is why I appreciate the role of permanent secretaries, because permanent secretaries are supposed to act as moderating influence, drawing attention at all times. Minister, what you want to approve, is there a budgetary provision? What you want to approve, is it within your mandate? What you want to approve, is it within the threshold of your powers without going to MTB? What you want to provide to lay before the Ministerial Tenders Board, is it within your distance? So now, some of this heat is caused by some ministers who act sometimes outside their powers. Again, there are also some legislators who demand and request things to be done by the ministers, which sometimes are not provided for in the budget, or it is not within the competence of the ministers to do, or sometimes it is taken as something that is not very decent in public policy. So by the time you see all this, now you also see the political parties themselves, the political party leadership themselves, sometimes don't ensure that what is being proposed by the executive to the legislature accords with what they promised the people in their manifesto, and sometimes it is not by their manifesto. And sometimes, and when you come to want to sell yourself again to the public, they will draw your attention. So these are the things that defined the relationship and defined what played out. Let me say that the legislature is not in any manner, whatever it does, and what it does sometimes, is not antagonistic to the executive. It's not antagonistic to, because sometimes say the legislature is opposing the government. No, the legislature and the executive and the judiciary makes the government. So it's not right to say that the legislature is opposing the government. What the legislature does is sometimes very helpful to the president himself, because the president is not it's not possible for the president to know many of the things that are happening in the respective ministries. It is when the legislature raises alarm or raises questions or invites the minister or invites the head of a parastatal that, why did you do this? It is in that case that either the governor, the chief executive, or the president knows what is happening. So what the legislature does should be, and if anybody feels that any of the things that the legislature is doing is outside the powers of the legislature, I always advise, go to court, seek the court intervention. Going to court against any executive or the legislature is not threatening the executive, is not raising a quarrel, is for many of these things to be interpreted.
I was just wondering, Senator Itainax, thanks a lot. In your explanation, in the early part of your response to my question, you did talk about, the political ambition of some of the presiding officers and the fact that those who emerged as presiding officers were not the original choices, of the party. Some persons have also argued that once those presiding officers emerged, there seemed to have been a war that was waged against them. I mean, the deputy president of the Senate and the Senate president himself faced trial on allegations of forging the Senate standing rules of 2015. And then the Senate president himself, was in and out of the Conduct Tribunal until his case was resolved by the Supreme Court. If any individual, the argument goes, faced that kind of antagonism, as it were, what was supposed to be the person's disposition?
Well, the trials were just legal issues. And of course, the courts were there. The job and the duty of Attorney General is to prosecute any person. And I'm sure that you've seen Attorney General prosecuting even ministers. You've seen Attorney General prosecuting or investigating executives. You've seen Attorney General bringing to trial heads of parastatals, and sometimes in the course of it, they are removed. Now, yes, that happened because there were allegations of tampering with the rules. Is that correct? And when there are such allegations, it is only the court that could, in such cases, resolve, because the executive or the Attorney General could not accuse and also judge. And of course, these were complaints that were not raised by the Attorney General. These were complaints that were raised by citizens, and they were also raised by serving senators as they were. So when there is allegation of infraction, then there must be prosecution. And then there ought to be prosecution. And of course, the Attorney General reserved the right to at any time withdraw. But then, as there were prosecution, the presiding officers, as they then were, also used the gavel to defend themselves, because the gavel says yes or no to what the legislature wants. And part of withholding communications, part of the presiding officer is the barometer for measuring what goes out. I'm sure you've seen when there is a question put, and the ayes and the yes, the ayes could have it more, and the presiding officer uses the gavel and says the nays have it. The nays have it. And if you want to do something otherwise, he said call for a division. When you call for a division and want to count, those who are loyal to the presiding officer will not want to be seen as standing against them. Because one, there is committee chairmanship to be shared. Two, there is committee chairmanship. Two, there is the question of recognition. If you are not in the right frame and in the right block on the floor, the eyes of the presiding officer may not catch you. Yes. So you will sit and raise your hand as long as you want. You cannot speak. Yes.
Let's pause you there. Gentlemen, from all the explanations we've had from Rafsanjani and our guest in Kaduna, it is very clear that politics and politicking, seem to be beclouding the ultimate aim of developing this country, democratically speaking. Because when you trace historically how it started in 1999, it has been some kind of a cantankerous situation, a relationship between the National Assembly and, of course, the executive. It started with Obasanjo. It was almost a physical fight at some point. We talked about it, the third-term move that didn't work. You also recall Garba Omar Naba, who was on a face-off, with the president at that time.
It was not Naba. It was we, the legislature. I was in that house.
He was at
and
the helm
we
of
stood
affairs.
out against him. Naba led us.
He was at the helm of affairs at the
It was
time.
our decision.
Good. Now, from Rafsanjani, he noted that during Yar'Adua, that the legislature began to have a sense of independence, as the case may be. But this shouldn't be, because in the Second Republic, we also practiced a presidential system of government. And there is a document, which is the Constitution that we are using, is still operational, even after some amendments. Now, the question I want to put to Abubakar Yunusa Ahmad in Kaduna is this. Are we learning? We have constantly noted that learning is a continuous process. But for a nation that has a constitution, for a nation that has practiced democracy for about 20 years now, without any military interregnum, have we really learned anything? Because the Eighth Republic, of course, we noted the Eighth Senate actually had a frosty relationship with the executive, and of course, the executive complained that it actually affected its performance in the last 4 years. So this is serious business. Now, when the Ninth Assembly and the ruling party has majority in the two chambers of the National Assembly, what should we be expecting in terms of going forward for Nigerians? Because of course Nigerians, when two elephants fight, of course the grass suffers.
Well, I am happy that my other co-panelist, Rafsanjani and Robert, legislator Itan Inang, who has been in the House of Reps and in the Senate, and now has been mediating between the executive and the legislature. We have all had it all. I'm not going to repeat what they say. But going forward, I was also a member of the 8th Assembly. So, and Eternal knows that we have been appearing on so many panels like this with him. He did mention that the immediate assembly, which is the 8th Assembly, people are saying the relationship was rather frosty. He did mention that it is not as frosty as people viewed, but that is a matter for another day. Going forward, as you ask me, I think we have learned not just lessons, in fact, tremendous lessons, positive ones that have impacted on us. Just like you did mention, we are on a learning process, and I think we have learned, though not enough, but I think we have learned enough to really put us on a better pedestrian in terms of nation building, like I always say. Here, the executive have it, the party have it. We have a majority in the APC, both in the Senate and in the House of Reps. They have really sat and chose whom they wanted to be presiding officers. And I think my fellow legislators have given them in, the majority have it. And you can see in terms of the election of the Senate President and his deputy, there is an overwhelming majority. When you come to the House of Representatives, the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker to have, in fact, the Deputy Speaker emerge and oppose, which meaning it is a unanimous consensus. And for the for the Speaker, he got almost 281 votes, almost about 50 or 40 above the vote of the APC, knowing fully that there are some other APCs, because the person that contested with him is an APC. So definitely he has some APC supporters. What I'm trying to say here is that it's not a one-party scenario. And that is why in the House of Reps, the project is joint tax kind of work. So we keep on saying it cut across all the parties in the Green Chamber. Now, having got that, it is expected that that perceived acrimony, that perceived negativism by the executive or the public to the legislators as viewed to be antagonistic will not be there. Because now the parties have put the people they thought they are the right people occupying the presiding officer seat. But I quickly have to add, just like Senator Ita Inang said, it is not about the presiding officers, it's about the members. It is now believed that, you see, even immediately now the media committee set up by the present speaker did emphasize this. When you look at the composition of the committee, all members of all political parties are in the committee, which I also happen to be in the committee, despite the fact that I was the sponsor and the nominator of his opponent, and I appear in the media committee. That shows that after the election, it is now going to be business of nation building, pending on your capability and what you can offer. Now again, Rafsanjani talked something about this constituency accountability. Let me tell you, last week, immediately in our first sitting, we had an executive session, and the speaker, in the form of Femi Bajabiamila, stressed this issue. In fact, part of the thing he's going to do immediately is to visit constituencies. Some of them, not all, but majority, he intends to visit the constituency to ascertain the constituency office and to stress, to score the fact of the legislator or the representative and his own constituency. He will have to parley with the members of the constituency to tell them the significance and importance of that constituency office. So kudos to you, Rafsanjani. From your analysis, you have been a very, very keen observer and you put it right. So the last assembly immediate, let me say, there can be our richness. There could be one or two disagreement, but let me tell you, the immediate assembly has passed so many number of bills, and they have transmitted a lot number of bills right from 1999 to date. No assembly has ever had it like this, the immediate one. We gave it to the executive, and again the executive returned so many unassented, and the 8th assembly has never even attempted to veto Mr. President's, to override Mr. President's veto. We could have done that, but we we chose the dialogue. I don't want to be specific, but the Northeast Development Commission bill that was sent to Mr. President, it took us a Herculean. First, Mr. President raised some observation. When returned to us, we quickly did this amendment. In fact, it was not meant for him to rescind. Mr. Speaker wrote a personal letter to withdraw that bill. Mr. Inan can bear me witness, and it was withdrawn and done behind the scene. The correction were done and then returned to Mr. President for assent. It takes almost about barely 48 hours. Mr. President does not see any reason for him to assent the bill. But a lot of Chinese talk were done, and miraculously, Mr. President assented to it. So there are so many things. This is just an example that of this kind of a Chinese talk behind the scene that Mr. Senator Ita Inang is saying. Again, we have to give kudos to these liaison officers. The one in the Senate in the person of Ita Inang, though I don't know whether he has been appointed or not, and the one in the House of Reps. They have to do more. They have been doing, but I think they have to educate the executive. He did mention, when we say executive, we are not referring to Mr. President alone. The ministers, head of agencies are there. There has to be a kind of a retreat occasionally to educate them as to the role of the legislators. They should view legislators not as antagonists, but partners in progress. Let me give you another example. For the 2017 or 2018 budget, you remember the Secretary of the Government of the Federation has to come out and direct head of MDAs and some ministers to even report to National Assembly to defend their submission. Why must it have to be so? There are so many ways we will issue an invitation to a head of government and he will refuse to come. There are situations whereby ministers, with due respect and apology to them, will not wake up and even advise Mr. President or come onto the media and say it is not even necessary for President to lay the budget. It is not even necessary for Mr. President to obey what the National Assembly transmitted. A budget is a law. So I think there has to be a lot of education. Just like Mr. Ina had advised, when the legislature does their job and you feel there is a kind of what we call it, that kind of infraction, then go to the court. And like Rafsanjani have said, the members of the public are supposed to ensure accountability to hold the legislators responsible. Now, when you come to the issue of this, what they call constituency project, though we don't have that language, we call it zonal intervention, is to provide the inadequacies. Members of the executive will feel a gap probably by overzealousness or being that they will do something that will not reflect the demography, the geopolitical disposition. For goodness sake, the House of Representatives, 360 constituencies are represented.
All right, Dr. Ahmad, thank you very much. We'll return to you shortly. I just want to bring in again Rafsanjani. I'm sure you must have heard the comment about what played out in the 8th Assembly, and therefore the need for a cordial, some persons refer to it as a cordial relationship between the legislature and the executive. Others will say it's a healthy relationship that they are calling for. First leg of my question is, does this now lay the groundwork, as it were, for the transformation of the legislature into a lapdog of the executive? And what will be the consequences of that? On the other hand, is there a new norm of doctrine of separation of powers that is being conceptualized when you say, oh, have a cordial relationship, have a cordial relationship? Otherwise, the Constitution is very clear. That's why you have the judiciary set up in the chapter, in Section 6, to resolve conflicts between the arms of government, between levels of government, between government and citizens, and among citizens themselves.
You know, if we are going to be realistic, in every environment, in every setting, you know, no matter how small it is, there will be agreement and disagreement. How we are able to amicably resolve those misunderstandings is what will make, you know, you to be successful. So having, you know, the party choices in the National Assembly has not in any way rendered the National Assembly totally submissive and ineffective. No. As a matter of fact, if you look at the 8th Assembly, it was controlled by the ruling party, both in the House and in the Senate. Yet, because you are dealing with human beings, you know, there was some disagreement. And no matter what you will say about the emergence of also the former Senate president, he was a party member. And in fact, he was one of the people that actually campaigned and moved around with the president. So I think, you know, and the president told everybody that he has no problem, you know, working with anybody at that time. Sometimes this conflict is fueled by people from outside, not even from the people within the executive or within the legislature. It is some so-called party people that, you know, who will not want their pace and that they insist that this is what they want. Then it now becomes executive legislature problem. No. As a matter of fact, the 9th Assembly, you know, despite the fact that the party, you know, got what it wants, maybe the presidency got what it would want, as long as right thing will not be done, you will see there will be, you know, disagreement. Because, you see, you have 109 members who are adults, responsible, matured, and they know what they are doing. And they are representing the interests of the people as well. You have 360 members who are equally representing people and who will do the right thing and who are guided by the Constitution, by their, you know, the law that, you know, sets their, you know, works. So if anything happen, if the kind of impunity, some of the executive arm of people will not, stop committing those impunity, definitely you will hear anything. But people should really differentiate between president and the National Assembly members. Some of these some of these members of the ministries or parastatal heads, they do things which, if the president gets no mercy, he will even actually, punish them. So the National Assembly is actually helping the executive to checkmate them, because there are so many things happening. And in the National Assembly, you have people with vast capacity and experience to be able to know and track certain, wrongdoing. And by making them public, it is healthy, it is helping governance. So many looting and stealing have been going on. But sometimes when the National Assembly organize investigative hearing or public hearing, you will hear so many things, which the president himself, he will be shocked that under him, this thing is happening. So the National Assembly should be seen as partners in progress. Of course, sometimes, because they are human beings, there are certain things that, maybe some people, they do over things. But that's why, everybody said there's a code to checkmate the excesses of that thing, and to also always call for discussion and understanding. Because, like I said, democracy is all about discussion, dialogue, consultation, negotiation. Not that you bully somebody, or you make somebody look as if, it doesn't matter. In this 9th Assembly, you have ex-governors, you have ex-deputy governors, you have ex-ministers, you have senators that have been there for years, like Lowell himself. He has been there in the National Assembly for 20 years, and quite a number of them, they are there, they are well experienced, they know what is right, and they know what is, what is not proper. So my own, call for understanding is that let the executive also respect the institution of legislature.
All right.
And let the legislature also knows their limits and also respect, the office of the, executive by not doing certain things that is unethical.
Okay, Sanjani, we have to pause you there. One good point you raise is the fact that, the executive arm of government is not just the president. We have the ministers and the heads of agencies. Yes. And you also know that those agencies and the ministries also have something to do with the National Assembly in terms of oversight functions. So they also meet at that level, of relationship. Okay. Senator Tsaina, you've been in National Assembly. You have experience of both chambers of National Assembly. And now you are a special assistant to the president on National Assembly matters. And the issues that have been raised by both Rafsanjani and Yunusa Ahmad is very germane in the sense that the president may not have full control of others who work under the executive arm of government, the ministers, the heads of agencies of government, and what have you. Now, what would you be telling the president with respect to the 9th National Assembly in what should be his relationship with the National Assembly? This is one, to ensure that the first relationship would have been a thing of the past, number one. Number two is how can he effectively utilize the advice from the National Assembly to see how he can push the manifesto of the APC to ensure overall development of the country. So if there's anything new that he should be doing in terms of his relationship with the National Assembly, can we know that?
I would be telling the president something new if there is something he did which was abnormal or unusual. But in my opinion, I don't have to tell the president anything now. And if I have to share opinion with him, by my role, it has to be me and him and in the office. So it will not be shared here. But I'm saying that there is actually nothing new that I would be telling the president, even inside the office, because everything and every step he took were such as would solve the situation. And of course, like I said at the beginning of this program, it is to the credit of President Buhari that we recorded the success we recorded to the end of that of the 8th Assembly on the 8th of June, because every skill every diplomacy, every negotiation and understanding were applied to get the administration succeeding with the legislature. Now, please, let me just respond to a few things, because some of our colleagues have said that we are still in the learning process. I'm saying that after 20 years, we are no more learning. Somebody said, look, it is a nascent democracy. No, it is not nascent democracy. And we said the relationship between the executive and the legislature and the H Assembly was frosty. It wasn't that frosty. It produced quite some results. And like Dr. Ahmad said, I wish if it were just that, for the number of bills and the extent of concentration of the legislature on legislative matters, I think the Eighth Assembly deserves and has deserved the highest credit, because they produced the highest number of bills. Not just the highest number of bills. There were legislatures that produced higher number of bills, but each of these bills either were in one chamber or the other. When I refer to highest number of bills is highest number of bills that have been processed to conference and completed and certified to the president for assent. And of course, Dr. Ahmed also said that there were so many bills that were declined assent, and that it was good relationship that made that the legislature did not override. I want to say, no, that each of the bills that Mr. President declined assent had very cogent, verifiable, legal, and constitutionally backed reasons. And each of those reasons, by the time Mr. President writes to the legislature couldn't fault any of those reasons. In fact, the President did so well in this matter that the Senate had to set up a technical team headed by Senator David Umoro to look at the chairman of the Committee on Judiciary, to look at every reason the bills that the President had declined assent. And that committee sat made up of eggheads of the Senate, and in fact, some input from the House of Representatives. And they came out and agreed with all the submissions of Mr. President, except one. And that one was not because the legal issues were not correct, but that one of them, that one was the one that related to, we came from the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Investment, and it related to taxation matter. And the reason that was given was that the executive the bill from the executive was ready. And at that time, at the time this was considered, that bill did not come from the executive, and they said, okay, seeing so in all this, there were so many good aspects from the president. If you come to reasons for declining assent to bills, in all the bills, take for instance, I've given about twice the Ajakuta funding bill. Said you cannot fund the Ajakuta as a single appropriation matter. 1. 2, the legislature does not originate appropriation. 3, if appropriation bill is before you, you cannot seek, because at the time they passed this, the 2019 appropriation was before them. So you can impute it and inject it into it. 3, again, it had to go through this other process. I've always liked to give the example of the petroleum industry bill. 1, I've given it many insights. It cannot be assented to in the way it is, because the president could have said, look, I look after the Ministry of Petroleum and so on. I could sign it but he said, look, the money that you want to make available to the Petroleum Regulatory Commission is too high. This money belongs to the state, local governments, and other agencies. I am president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Therefore, in all this, please let me just make one submission before we get on another matter. The legislature, as it were, had a coalition administration. And the way the speakership of the Dogara speakership emerged, there was a coalition. While the APC supported the Femi, the Dogara campaign got into alliance with the PDP and got more votes to emerge. And so Dogara, Speaker Dogara, as he then was, owed a duty to satisfy a lot of members of the PDP and so most of the matter that he would have taken, which would have smoothened out, he had to consider the interests of the PDP, as it were. The same thing was more in the Senate, when there was even the Deputy Senate President emerging from the other political party. So it was the greatest success for the Buhari administration to manage this coalition and yet still come out with what it came out from. But I'm believing that, this other one, the one that has emerged under the Femi speakership and the Lawan Senate presidency, there were bipartisan support. But they're also going to be able to look more at the party's manifesto. And most of the matters are going to be discussed and agreed at the party caucuses before it comes out, so it's going to be a lot smoother.
Just as well, Senator Enang, you raised the party caucus. I was going to raise that question about the party caucus system, which does not appear to have been very effective in the past 20 years or so, unlike what we had in the Second Republic. But that will be a matter that we'll take up on another day. One other point to also raise with the rationale for the rejection of the high number of bills by the president had to do with the typographical errors that littered some of the bills that were transmitted to the president.
In fact, I just want to apologize. I just want to apologize to make this intervention. You know, a lot of persons had said that if it is just typographical error, President, you can just correct it and sign. But some have said, look, if it is just rearrangement, you can rearrange. If it is just numbering and pagination, you can read. The president or a governor, when a bill is presented to him, he cannot add comma or apostrophe or full stop. He cannot even put capital letter where there is, he cannot put small letter where there ought to be a capital letter. He cannot add anything to it. Under the Constitution, under the law, you have to send, you either assent as it is or return as it is. So the legislature, the secretariat of the legislature, and in fact the legislature, has to come back and do the real work. That is why there are 369 men in the House and 400 for details.
360 and one.
Let me go for
yes.
that. Because for a document to leave the chamber to the executive with typographic errors or whatever error anyway, it cannot be acceptable.
Yes.
Because there are a number of people there, and how could nobody proofread or something? So that shouldn't come up.
All right, Kyria, there are some tweets that have come in. We're going to take those tweets right away. And this is coming from Mani Akman. They said the executive-legislature relationship should be guided by the sincere desire of government to better the lot of Nigerians.
Okay, now, from Abubakar Ali of Furambe, the relationship between the executive and legislative arms of government should be maintained to achieve good governance, taking into cognizance the powers and the independence of each of them.
Issa Abdullahi, the synergy between the two arms, that's legislature and the executive, is our expectation from the 9th Assembly. Now, we expect the two arms to stick to their constitutional duties without looking down on the other.
But I must say that they should work cordially for the growth and development of the country.
Dele Jack Solomon, both the executive and legislature should respect and strictly adhere to the tenets of the principles of separation of powers so as to avoid friction that could be counterproductive.
Sani Amokaji, one of the merits of a true presidential system such as ours is existence of check and balances. We also heard from Festus.
Festus is making a proposal there, Kyria. Says the executive branch and legislature should have weekly meetings, and President Buhari should stock his cabinet and staff with individuals who have good understanding of the workings of the legislative branch.
All right, and that's the tweets for today. And at this point, we are calling it a day on this segment of the program. First, we'd like to appreciate Senator Ita Enang, Senior Special Assistant to the President on National Assembly Matters. Thank you for coming, sir. And also here, Awal Musarraf Sanjani, Executive Director of Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center. We appreciate your contribution there. And our Cardinal Network studio, we hosted Dr. Abubakar Yunusa Ahmad, member representing Yamal 2 Deba Federal Constituency of Yobe State. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us on the show this morning. All right, this is Good Morning Nigeria. Well, we still have another topic to discuss, and that'll be coming very shortly. Stay with us.
Hold it! Me, I don't commot my hand from oil bunkering.
General, what you going to yarn? What did the yarn say? I don't understand, though.
Because they spoil our water and our environment. And they cause our people serious harm. Military said, you know good. Me, I not do again sound. Because why? Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
One Football Confederation, 24 teams, 6 stadiums, 4 cities, 504 African stars, 1 trophy. The Africa Cup of Nations Egypt 2019 comes alive from June 21 with the showpiece final on July 19, 2019. Watch the 52 matches of the tournament live on Africa's biggest and largest television network, NTA, in partnership with Hot Sports. Be part of the biggest soccer fiesta in the African continent as the Super Eagles go on a bold mission to clinch the prestigious title for the 4th time to the excitement of millions of fans across the length and breadth of Nigeria. For inquiries, please contact Abubakar on 0803-331-0175 and Felix on 0803-308-2375. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous. Whether you do it for fun or for political gains, real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
All right, welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria. We're on the home stretch. But ahead of the Africa Cup of Nations AFCON 2019, which kicks off later this week, that's on Friday, in Egypt, the Nigerian Television Authority, Africa's largest public broadcaster, has struck a deal with Hot Sports, that's also Nigeria's biggest sports marketing firm, to beam all 52 matches of the forthcoming AFCON 2019. To give us details of the deal, we have in our studio one of our own, Abdulrahman Ibn Mohammed, former General Manager, NTA Sports and NTA International. Is of course a sports enthusiast and analyst. Ibn Mohammed, pleasure to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good to see you this morning, Kingsley.
All right. And from our Lagos studios, we have Mr. Taye Ige, who is President CEO Hot Sports. Taye Ige, delighted to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Mr. Osadolo. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
All right, gentlemen, it's good to have you on this segment. Let's begin with Ibn Mohammed. Yesteryears, NTA was known for beaming all manner of sports, both local and international. And after a while, NTA went down, when it comes to sports, especially when it comes to live coverages. But this time around, a deal have been struck between NTA and Hot Sports. So what is it about this deal, and what does it hold for Nigerian sports lovers?
Well, let me start this way. You spoke about those days, and then there was a lull. NTA, before the the opening of the space in the broadcast industry in the early, maybe mid-90s, has always had this social responsibility hanging on it, and the government was funding it. So there was no sporting event, major sporting event in this world, whether athletics, whether boxing, whether the World Cup or whatever, All Africa Games, it was binding on the NTA because it was funded to do so. But when the space opened up, a lot of players came in, and it takes really big money. And of course, NTA was partially commercialized along the way. So bidding for all these rights became a big deal, especially as a lot of those who have come in as private broadcasters were, just hiding by the side, only for NTA to, market, source for money, and so on and so forth, which was no longer coming from the government since the space had been opened up, only for them to, ambush market and so on and so forth. So it became a big deal. But coming to what is happening now, in the past couple of years, the NTA management has been having a rethink. Yes, the space may have been opened up, but that social responsibility toga has not been taken off NTA. It is still the #1 public broadcaster in this country, in fact, the only public broadcaster for this country, for this government, and for the people. Therefore, the management is beginning to, over the years, to knock here and there to ensure that it works with competent and reputable marketers to ensure that correct marketing is done. So at the very least, NTA's costs are written off by what we are able to market, so that we give to Nigerians, because Nigerians have a right to see what our teams, either athletics, boxing, or footballers, are doing. That is what is happening, and that is what has led to this deal with hotspots. And we're excited because the responses we are getting from not only governmental agencies, but also the corporate world. We are sure that Nigerians will get a good run for their money. We only hope that the Super Eagles will back us up by, doing what they should do.
All right, Ibn Mohammed, give us a sense of what the scope of the deal is with hotspots. You say you're covering all 52 matches.
Right.
Yes. What else is on offer?
Well, apart from the 52 matches, usually there are value additions. You have talking points, a combination, a compilation of the goals for the day. We are trying to make it an all-rounded affair. And of course, we have only one network, but we have a lot of other platforms. So on the network, if you want to take over the whole network, then other interests might suffer. But all the live matches that are on stake, especially those involving Nigeria and some of the other top ones as far as the competition's ranking is concerned, we're going to have them on the network. Others that we cannot bring onto the network because some of those games will take place simultaneously, will be on our sports channel, which is on the StarTimes platform. And the quality is assured.
I'm just wondering, to Taye Ige in Lagos of hot sports, from your own perspective, what is coming to the viewers, who will have the benefit of this collaboration with Africa's largest television network?
Well, okay, thank you very much for having me once again. Beyond football, beyond the live matches, there are one or two other things that we think should excite viewers. Let's start with the presentation. A couple of weeks ago, I had a meeting with Ali Baba, the icon of comedy in Nigeria, and the intention is that live matches are going to be presented for the first time in Nigeria with a comedy flavor. So you're going to have a 3-man set, the anchor, a very powerful analyst, and then, of course, a guy who is going to be giving things from a comedy perspective. Now, it's not just going to be on that set because he's a comedian. I've agreed with Ali Baba that he would do a proper auditioning and get guys that also, have very good football information and knowledge to offer, Nigerians, but with a comic inflection. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is that will we be on ground Egypt? And as we all know, technology takes things to, the next level every time. You're going to have a live in-swings from our guys that will be on ground Egypt, so that before a match, before a game, you'll be able to see what really is happening. Hotspots, by the way, is an official media partner of Nigeria Football Federation. So what that entitles us to do is to get into the camp of any national team, Super Eagles, Flying Eagles, the Falcons, and set up production facilities in their camp. And, some of those things that you don't find regularly around the way the team feels going for a match, coming from a match they have lost or won, what is the atmosphere in the bus, even flying into games, what do you find? You know, how do they, who is the chief priest of the team, who is the chief imam, who is, you know, the pastor of the team. All of these things we will bring to the viewing pleasure of, you know, Nigerian fans. So it goes beyond football. Yes, football you can find anywhere. And by the way, NTA is doing this for the first time in a long while. Thanks to the Yakubu Ibn Mohammed-led management who thought, no, NTA must take its rightful place. And we at Hot Sports really are privileged, you know, to collaborate with NTA in this. And with all hands on deck, I can be sure that Nigerians are in for a big treat.
Taye, well put, you know, because our DG that you commended also reported sports, so we're not surprised he's interested, you know, in sports. Now, we understand that the right acquired by NTA also includes some important and upcoming CAF competitions. So, does it mean that the deal is not just a one-off? Is it a continuous thing?
The rights that NTA has acquired from CAF does not, as you have rightly put it, consist only of the coverage of the AFCON finals, the 32nd edition. There are some others, like the CAF Champions League, the CAF Confederations Cup. Of course, those two competitions, the Nigerian Professional League just concluded its playoffs with a Yimba of Aba coming back to the continent alongside Kano Pillars. They will play in the Apex competition, while Rangers qualified to play in the Confederations Cup. Of course, the winners of the ITO FA Cup will also join Rangers in that category. Others include the Women's Africa Cup of Nations finals, the Under-20 finals. So it's a whole lot. And of course, more importantly, the qualification games of the Super Eagles for the next edition of the AFCON. So it's a whole ball game, and it's going to at least keep on eliciting interest and keeping Nigerians abreast with what is happening to our national football teams. So it's not a one-off.
We're not talking about local teams. I was going to ask you the place of Bendel Insurance, you know, in all of this.
Abdurrahman, let's keep Bendel Insurance, because we're talking about AFCON now. We know that Rangers lost woefully to Bendel Insurance in 1978, FA Cup final, October.
That is a record.
A record. Thanks a lot. You know, so Kia was going to drag us back into that. But Abdurrahman, the collaboration with Hot Sports and the rights upon which this is based, is it an exclusive broadcast right? In other words, is it only on NTA that this will be shown? What happens?
Well, NTA has gone for this right exclusively. But of course, we are aware that NBC rights and some other, authorities don't want that kind of, you shut out others. And certainly NTA is not thinking about that. But there are certain rules. There are certain do's and don'ts. We are aware that our partners in the Broadcasting Organizations of Nigeria, BON, have approached the DG, and the DG has graciously listened to them. And the committee responsible for packaging of this for NTA is ready to listen to our BON members. There are do's and don'ts that they must abide with, because we are spending hard-earned money. We are looking for offers. We are looking for people to support us, so we cannot just afford that the matches will only be taken and our commercials and other appendices of the games are not taken. This is the basic rule. And once the go-ahead has been given, we will spread out our monitors. Any station that does not adhere strictly, you want to take the matches, take it hook, line, and sinker. The CAF commercials, the NTA commercials, the discussions, you've got to take it. If you want to do anything around it, surely after taking the visuals, you can localize your production. But for the matches, you must take everything hook, line, and sinker.
All right, so otherwise we'll get ready for intellectual property suits.
Now, Kisula, I want to ask Taye about this. Now, this is yours is the marketing aspect of this. What's the terrain like? You know, because Nigerians are showing interest in sporting activities in terms of sponsorship, or what's your experience?
Well, perhaps the best way to put it is that football is our number one religion in Nigeria, the one thing that all of us subscribe to. Sponsors, advertisers very well understand and know this, and they are not found wanting on this occasion, I'm happy to report. Even though things started a bit late in terms of approaching, in terms of the rights being finally settled, rights issues being finally settled, and, you know, us getting to the market. But the situation is such that we are happy to do this over and over and over again. And that speaks of the kind of successes that we already are achieving in the market. Yeah, to answer your question.
All right, Mr. Taye Ige, CEO of Hotspots, which is collaborating with the Nigerian Television Authority, Africa's largest TV network, for the broadcast of all 52 matches of the forthcoming AFCON 2019. We'd like to thank you for being with us from our Lagos Network Center. All right, and here with us in the studios, our deep appreciation to Abdulrahman Ibn Mohammed, former General Manager, NTA Sports. Thanks a lot for outlining what the rules would be for those who will be hooking up to the NTA on its network coverage of AFCON 2019, plus other platforms that are available on Africa's largest television network. Abdulrahman, thanks a lot for being around.
Good being here.
And after this, you can discuss Bendel Insurance and Enugu Rangers, you know, were humiliated in 1978.
Bendel Insurance.
So, all right, so let's go very quickly to our weather center. Okay, all right, we understand there is no weather report this morning. Curious.
Yes,
so let's go.
No, we have to close. No, but the fact is that Bendel Insurance is under relegation at the moment, you know, presently.
You know, where things, you know, there are peaks and troughs.
This is the end of this edition of Good Morning Nigeria. I would like to thank you for watching. Please come again tomorrow for another edition of the program. My name is Kirian Umayo.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. Do have a wonderful day ahead of you.
Are you